Hey everybody. Okay, so I was going to go live on YouTube, but then I pushed the button to go live and it says, oh, this channel does not qualify for live videos. So I'm like, what? So apparently in the last 2 months since I've recorded videos, they will no longer let people with smaller channels go live. So unfortunately, I will have to go live on Facebook. So that kind of sucks that I won't be able to do it on my channel, but I mean, I didn't really advertise it on the other channel. So anyway, today this whole thing came about because I was thinking about how back in the day, back in 2006, my mom wanted to go on vacation to the Dominican Republic, and I had never really gone outside of the country before, but I really wanted to because sorry, I wanted to go on this vacation to the Dominican Republic. I wasn't sure about it. My whole life I had always wanted to go to Paris and all that stuff, but she was like, let's go to the Dominican Republic. So I was like, okay, cool. So we went, and from almost like day one, I was kind of like, once we got off the plane, there was the sun, the sand, the music, all that stuff, and it was really like, I was almost like in love with the country and the culture like right away. And so we got off the plane, drove to our hotel and everything. And then I guess the first morning, we went to breakfast, and you know, they have in these resorts big restaurants that have different stations where you can go get your food. So I went over to the egg station and I saw this man with the biggest, most beautiful smile like that I had seen in a long time, and I was like so captivated by him and that smile. And so, you know, I got my eggs from him, and you know, he didn't speak English, I didn't speak Spanish. This was before the days of the you know, iPhones and all that stuff. You know, there was no Google Translate that you could just use. So we kind of tried somehow and made plans to get together after his shift was done. So we met up on the beach after that, and we hung out. I had a little English-Spanish dictionary, and we kind of just made the conversation work, you know. So if I had something to say, I was using a lot of hand gestures. He was using hand gestures. And, you know, we used the dictionary for the things that we couldn't figure out how to gesture and made it work, right? So we kept talking, and you know, every day we agreed to meet up. So we met up just about every day of the vacation after that first time that we met. And, you know, it was just like kind of one of those things, you know, I've always been a person that loved kind of the foreign men and men that had something different than what I was used to. Like when I was in college, I used to always hang out with like a lot of African people from different countries in Africa and different people. Like I was always fascinated by foreigners. So like when I met him, and it was sort of an adventure for me. And as the vacation drew on, we continued talking and trying our best to communicate and everything. And we exchanged numbers after the 8 days of being in the Dominican Republic. We went dancing, all that kind of stuff. So went back home, and I used my Google Translate in order to communicate with him on the computer. So I would call him up on the computer, on the phone, and use my Google Translate in order to talk to him. And we talked and talked and talked as much as I could, and I learned a lot of Spanish just by talking to him and using Google Translate to get my point across. So over time, like, we continued that, and then I decided that, you know, I would ask my job if I could move to the Dominican Republic and, you know, just work remotely, because I was working in IT, so as long as I had an internet connection and a phone, I was able to do it. So I didn't pack up my whole house. I did keep my house there, and I went to live with him in the Dominican Republic. That was around 2007, I think. And I moved there. It was interesting. had a good time. You know, there was, of course, some red flags, but in the spirit, like when I sit down and watch some of the people on the 90 Day Fiance show, I can totally relate to some of the things that they did, because like you can't imagine that someone would just be into you just to get a visa, because like, you know, as a person that lives in the United States, that it's not that easy here. So for people to like be so willing to deceive and lie and cheat and whatever to come here, you don't think that that's even a thing. So like I was constantly probably feeding myself lies and stories about how he could definitely not be doing that to me. And so anyway, I moved down there. Things were okay, but I could still feel that there was something missing. Something wasn't being told. You know, I kind of felt like in my gut, something was wrong. And, you know, sometimes he would go to work in the day and, you know, early in the morning around 6 a.m. and he wouldn't get home until like 9 at night. And meanwhile, I'm at home on my computer. This was back in the days when the Dominican Republic had power outages daily. So like I'm sitting in the apartment with just my laptop and you know, watching things like Ugly Betty on the computer that took hours to download, because you know, he wasn't home. I was there by myself in a country that I didn't know. I still didn't really speak the language that well. So, you know, I didn't have any family or friends or anything. So, you know, I just kind of hung out in the apartment by myself, and he would be gone. And, you know, it was weird to me that he was always gone. You know, it wasn't like he was out, you know, that he could be out late past a certain hour, because he used to sell things on the beach. So I know once it gets dark on the beach, people are not going to be out there buying, so he could easily be back on his way home around 7, probably get home back to Higüey by 8, but it wasn't happening. So I started to get suspicious. And, you know, I knew something was wrong, but I tried to get different information, tried to talk to different people to tell me, you know, if they knew maybe if he had kids or something, because I found it also funny that all of his other brothers and sisters, everybody had kids except for him. That was weird, you know. And so he kept telling me he didn't have them. I talked to other people. They told me he didn't have kids, yada, yada. So I'm like, okay, but I'm still suspicious. So one time we were, I had decided to go over to his dad's house because I knew he was there, and I was just sitting in the apartment. So I said, I'm going to go over to his dad's house and see what's going on. So as soon as I got there, him and his dad kind of whisked me away to the little corner store of the place where you go to drink and do stuff like that in the little neighborhood that they lived in. And I thought that was weird that as soon as I got there, instead of them letting me come inside the house and everything, they wanted me to go off somewhere else. And come to find out later on that was because his kids were there. As time went on, I went through the whole immigration process, did his paperwork and everything, still with these red flags and not really able to find the information that I needed. Even I had gotten to the point where I had hired a private investigator who was terrible and didn't give me any information at all. So that was kind of, you know, but that should have been a red flag for me there. If you get to the point where you're with somebody and you have to have a private investigator to follow them and figure out what's going on with them, that's a problem. So that's when you know you need to cut it off. But I was young and dumb and, you know, hopeful that this was something that was going to work out, and it actually was doomed from the start, basically. And so once we finished with his paperwork, which I did all by myself. If you're going through the immigration process, you don't need a lawyer to do the paperwork. You don't need your papers to sit on someone's desk for a week while they work on other cases. It's pretty simple, the process. You just have to follow the instructions and go through the paperwork as, as instructed. That's just that little tidbit. But once I got his paperwork done, he moved to the States, and I thought everything would kind of be different once he got here, and there weren't as many parties and distractions with drinking and going here and there. I mean, we have had that, but like I wasn't into that. So I thought once he moved to Philly, he would kind of settle down and, things would kind of cool off, and he would find a job and just kind of, live his life there and figure out how to thrive in the United States. That couldn't have been further from the truth. So once we got to the States, it seemed like he was like making secret phone calls, and I started getting weird calls from people telling me things, telling me like weird things like that somebody had just had a baby, and shortly after he had gotten into the country, and I was like, what? And so he somehow met up with some guy that was living in New Jersey. And, they invited us up to their house in North Jersey. He was a Dominican. She was a lawyer that was living in Northern Jersey. And she had solicited his paperwork. So we went to their house in Jersey. And she told me on the side that he had 3 kids. Now, that was, after he got to the States and everything, that's when I found out definitively that he had these 3 other kids in the Dominican Republic. And suddenly, all my gut instincts and all that stuff that I felt like I knew sort of made sense. Because now, this other person who had nothing to gain from telling me this was telling me something that I kind of felt like I knew anyway, but wasn't sure of all the details. So once I found out, of course, I confronted him right away. I guess let me rewind just a little bit. We had gotten into an argument, and he didn't end up going to Jersey with me. He ended up, shortly after he arrived in the United States, he had left and went to Rhode Island and stayed there for a while. And then right before he came back, I was invited to these people's houses, and I went there and found that information out. And then I guess around Memorial Day of that same year, I went and picked him up from Rhode Island because we were trying to reconcile and everything. And then he basically confessed that he had these children, and he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want me to not want to date him or whatever, because and of course I probably wouldn't have. At that time I was 26 years old. There was no way I was going to be dating somebody that had 3 kids already, because I wanted kids of my own. So we ended up, he finally ended up getting a job, and it was like he had this sense of entitlement that I was, when you gonna find me a job and stuff like that, he would say to me. And it got to be frustrating because it was like I was responsible for everything, and I should have really known that I would be, but, I didn't expect that kind of sense of entitlement that I was supposed to not only, pay all the bills and make sure that everything was taken care of while he got up on his feet, but then not only that, I had to go and find him the jobs and do all this stuff. So anyway, fast forward, things really did not get any better from there. There were a lot of lies. He would lie to me about things, like I would ask him to buy phone cards, and he would make calls directly from the cell phone back to the Dominican Republic, like secret phone calls. And I'm like, who is he calling? That's so secret. So come to find out, not only did he have the 3 kids before, but also there was someone who has, his new girlfriend that he's currently, I believe is the same person that he is currently with now, has kids that are around my son's age. So, yeah. So the whole time he was together with me, he was also with someone else. Now, he will never to this day admit that, but that is the case. Because he has I believe an 8 or 9 year old. Christian is 10, and then he has another child that's also, I believe, 8 or 9. I'm not sure of all their ages. I just try to be nice to all of them or whatever, and kind of like I've just moved on from the situation. But it was a big old mess. He was cheating on me basically the whole time. And so anyway, I guess I say all that to say, like, I hear people a lot of times making fun of the people on the show 90 Day Fiance, and I guess, it is kind of funny to see people struggling and thinking that someone cares and loves them when they really don't. And I get that, and you don't think it's going to happen to you, but sometimes it does. And so the way that I would say that you could avoid these situations is when you go on these vacations and stuff, if you meet somebody that you like, make sure that they have the means to get at least a travel visa for themselves. If they don't have the ability, if there's no possibility that they could petition for a travel visa for themselves, then you kind of know that there's always that chance that this person is just wanting to be with you for the possibility of a visa. If this is somebody that more than likely you would not date at home in the States or would not be interested in you somehow. I mean, I'm not a person that believes in leagues and anybody is out of anybody's league. But just be aware that if you're 85, and somebody's 20, that could be something that you want to think about when you're dating that person, what their motives are, especially if number one, they cannot get their visa on their own. So just, these are the things that I would say. Be compassionate about this, because you never know when you're going to be somewhere and find somebody that interests you and you fall in love with or whatever. But because it could happen. The world is smaller now. Social media connects people across across countries and oceans and whatever. So you never know what life is going to throw at you, but you just have to keep your wits about you and make sure that when you are dating people, that you're dating people that are on a similar level to what you are on. And that when you are interested in someone, ask lots of questions. Don't let people hoodwink you. Sometimes families of these people will help them to hide things. My son's family, my son's grandparents and everybody certainly helped his dad hide his other children and all the other things that he had going on from me. So sometimes it's a family affair, and you just really have to be very patient. You don't have to rush into marriage with people, and you don't have to, put yourself in a situation where you could make a mistake that could cost you a lot. I got lucky that he went back home, but if it had come to a situation where he decided to get on welfare or any of that stuff, I would have had to pay the government back for any money, any public assistance that he received. That's a part of bringing someone here to the States, that you have to sign and say, I am going to be responsible for any public money that this person gets for the first, I believe, 6 or 10 years or something like that. I can't remember, but you're basically putting a lot on the line. So, I was pretty lucky that he never got public assistance or any type of welfare, and he went back to his country, and so we never had to go through with the rest of the visa process. But, it was an experience. Okay. Thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, 10 years. I knew it was a long time that you had to be responsible. So, that's a lot of money, and a lot of money to be paying back for somebody who maybe came here because they didn't really love you to begin with. So, that's basically my story. I mean, would I go back and change anything? No, because I think that situation has brought me to where I am today. Like, I wouldn't be living here in Puerto Rico had I not gone through that situation. My son wouldn't be bilingual had I not gone through that situation. I probably would not be as adventurous as I am with going out and exploring the world by myself, because basically I went to the Dominican Republic. Once I went down there, I spent a lot of time by myself exploring and finding out and getting to know people, learning the language and stuff, and that kind of sent me on this journey that I'm on now. And that's why I'm not afraid to go out and enjoy the world, because I don't feel that fear, because I've done that, been there, done that. I, got the t-shirt, got the kid, got all of that from it. So, now it's just like second nature to me to just go and see a country. Would I do that again? Not in that country. There is a part of me that would date someone from another country again for sure. But would I would do it a much different way. I would make sure that the person that I was dating had the same means that I did, that they didn't need me, for money, that they needed me maybe for just companionship and that kind of thing, but that we were on equal levels when it comes to money and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would definitely do it again. I would not do it again in the DR, but I would definitely do it again someday if the opportunity came up. I don't know if there's anything else that I have to say about that. Yes, exactly, Jasmine. That is the most important thing, that I have my son, who is like the light of my life, my best travel partner. We get along so well. He's like the perfect little kid for me. It's like we were so matched so perfectly. And so I'm so happy. That's one of the main reasons why I would never change the situation. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Well, I would not change that situation. I will not do that again, but I would not, is what I'm trying to say. But I wouldn't rewind and go back and change anything, because I feel like it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. The best and the worst at the same time. So I think that's about it. It was a rough time. I went through a major depression once that whole marriage was over. I was like done. And it took me some years to get over the situation. But, now I'm at such a much better place in my life. I have a good relationship with Christian's father. I have a good relationship with his new girlfriend. We'll never be best friends or anything, but we have a good relationship. So, it's good. We get along. There's no fighting. I don't like drama. I like to keep it nice and simple, So, yeah. I am so happy that you guys came and joined me. I appreciate that. I guess I gotta get my YouTube channel subscribers up in order to go and do lives on YouTube. But thank you guys so much for coming here and joining me on this Facebook Live. And I will hopefully, if I can, upload this to my YouTube channel. And if you guys ever have any questions about the immigration process or anything like that, I can definitely answer those, because I have been there, done that. So thank you, Rona. Hi, Rona, nice to see you. And hi, everybody that's joined and come through for my little story. Thank you for coming, and I will see you guys real soon. Bye. And say hi to the dogs. They've been crying and whining this whole time. Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye.